Amen. Thank you. That protocol, boy. Take your seats, please. How many folk feel happy this morning? All right. As you can see, we are doing some things we have never done before. There's nothing wrong with that. We are exemplars. And I know that some of the things we have been asking to do might seem a little bit inconvenient. But it's not that we want to be sophisticated, as we have been told. It's just simply we are following protocol. And as I emphasize, I can't stop doing that. Anytime the protocol conflicts with God's word, we choose God's word. If there's no conflict, there's no problem. There's no problem. We are law-abiding. Also, what is happening is this. Why we want to be very, very cooperative, we do not want, if perchance anything happens, that somebody comes in here. It might not be a member, it might be a visitor, and after leaving here, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 days, they may begin to show signs of the thing. You know, there is a tracing, and they'll ask you, when the last place you went? I went to the church. We don't want to send the papers that after coming to church in Samuel Avenue, Mr. John Brown tested positive. You get the point? And that goes around the world. We might be innocent, you know. We might be innocent. But they trace it. And they trace every last place the person might have congregated. And the last place the person did congregate was in Rhema. And that goes. They got it because they went to church. And the church was Rhema. How many folk want to see that on the headline? Nobody. So you see, we got to be very, very cooperative and understanding and look at the bigger picture. Our aim is the bigger picture. And we want to be innocent of any accusation that we are not guilty of. Well, innocent of not guilty of. Same difference, isn't it? Same difference. All right, we are continuing on Even So Send I You. And I think I'm seeing our latest doctor. Am I correct? Would you stand, please, Dr. Cumberbatch? Amen. God has been good to us in Rhema. He was educated right in this church, Rhema. God has been so good. We thank God for the success of our young people and for our members in general. We are a family member, and we want to just give God thanks for his goodness towards us. Now, as we said, I will not be preaching in both services, so the people like you will hear this installment, but unfortunately, those in the 10 o'clock will not hear it. So what do? We are recording. We are streaming this. So it will be placed on Facebook and YouTube. They can look at it at 5 o'clock. That's how we'll be doing it. So the people who are absent, let them know that the message of the teaching, not that other preachers haven't got anything good to say, we're talking about the teaching we're doing, or the theme for the year. Even so send I you. Even though they came in the second service, they will be having it on 5 o'clock on Sunday when they can look at it and relax. Now, if you recall, we did the last time, we did motive. The motive. We did the mode, the motive, and today we're going to talk about the motivation. Even so send you, the motivation. Now, if you observe what we have been doing so far, they are all interrelated. There's no disjointedness. The mode comes into the motive, and the motive goes into the motivation. And as we will do the following week, the mandate and so on, they all are interrelated and interconnected. And there's a seemingly a silver lining that runs right through, connecting them. It will be very, very difficult to try to dissect and separate the motive from the motivation. But they are, not technically, but they are really objectively different. The motive, for example, is that which actually causes somebody. What is at the back of the mind? What is the intention? What is the desire? What is the dream? And the motivation is like the locomotive that drives the dream, that makes it happen, that spurs the person on. You can have a motive and just remain there, just looking on, trying to evaluate, and then still do nothing. Or depend upon somebody to take the baton to run with it. And you just simply say like a motive. It's like, for example, a cat may see a lizard or a mouse, and the cat is just there, crouching. What is the motive? I want to put my mouth or my claws on that mouse. And if you only have the motive, nothing happens. A motive, I want to get that mouse. But there got to come a time when there can be something that will actually propel that cat and make him take that spring and take that jump and put his claws upon that mouse. That is the motivation, the propelling agency, the propelling force that spurs you on, that sustains you to go after, to make your motive become substantiated, to make your motive become a reality. They can possess what your motive was. That is what we are talking about. So motivation, it is definitely interrelated with the motive, but it's not just good to have the motive. Now, even so send I you. Don't forget that. There has to be a benchmark. Jesus said in John chapter 20, 21, as my Father has sent me, even so. So there's a comparative there. Even so. So if we are to conform and we are to execute that sending, we got to understand what is the guideline. What do we have out the plumb line that we're going to gauge everything from? So everything we do must be guided by that. That stands there as the pillar that is immovable, that must not be adjusted, that must not be tampered with. Everything must be in alignment with that thing. And therefore, we will never be effective unless we ask ourselves, what was the motive that motivated God to send Jesus? That's the idea. Now, God has always, I said last week, Sunday or the week before, that matter of fact, God has always moved towards humanity. Every time God wanted something done upon the face of the earth, he never actually used an angel. He may send the angel to inform and to instruct, but the innovating of the thing, the execution of the thing is always people. When God wanted Israel delivered, what did he do? He sent a man called Moses. So God is the great motivator. In the book of Exodus chapter 3, we have a scenario there. From chapter 3 of Exodus and verses 7, 8, 9, and 10. We're going to put not all up on the board at the same time, but we're going to put a little bit. Look at chapter 3 rather, and verse 7. Let's read that first, please. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Now, there are three categories here that motivated God. One, he said, I have seen the affliction. Number two, I have heard their cry. And number three, I know their sorrow. All, and because I have seen, and because I have heard, and because I know, I am come down to deliver them. Look at verse 10 of that same chapter. As a result of three, come now therefore, and I will do what? Send thee unto Pharaoh. So God is in my sending. The motivating factors that caused me to send you, Moses, is because of what I have known or seen, and have known and have heard. This has been the very heartbeat of God. The Bible makes it quite clear in the book of Psalm 34 and verses 15 and 17. God has not changed. He's the same God. Look at Psalm 34 and verse 15. What does it say? It says there, a little bit slow on that, isn't it? The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open unto their cry. When God hears the cry of a people, he does something. These are the things that move him. Look at verse 17 of the same chapter. The righteous cry, and the Lord does what? Hears and delivers them. So what are we doing here? God will be motivated by people's conditionality. The state of people will always move God. Human concern. His concern for human suffering. His concern for human helplessness. And his great compassion. As we can deduce some either from Exodus chapter 3, these are the three important things we gather. One, God's concern for human suffering. I've heard their cry by reason of the affliction. Come, I will send you. In other words, they could not deliver themselves. So we have human helplessness. Now remember we talked about even so send I you. God says, I am the everlasting God, I change not. And the same thing that motivated God with the people of Israel, those same things will hold good for God even now. His concern over human suffering. There will never, until the rapture takes place, there will never ever upon the face of the earth come a season when humanity will not be experiencing suffering of one sort or another. My God, look at COVID-19, for example. It has touched every continent upon the face of the earth. And we in Trinidad, we are praising God, we are magnifying God, but there are some countries in the world. I saw over the past 2 days of the weekend, in Florida, for example, the death toll has so spiked that the morgues are overflowing. And the government have now rent big cooler trucks to act as freezing compartments to facilitate the dead or the corpses. It's out of control. And Florida isn't far from us. Mexico and Brazil. And now the place where this thing is actually spiking even out of control above America. When we thought that the thing is dwindling, it just simply seemed to shoot up. People are suffering. And even today, there are so many Trinidad and Tobagonians by the thousands who want to come home and they can't get home. Put yourself in their shoes. People are suffering. People are dying. People are losing their husband, their wife, their mother, their father, their sibling. Tears are being shed. Houses are being put into a state of gloom. And to add insult to injury, when their loved one dies, you can't even celebrate their life properly in memory of the life that they live because of the constraint on the social gathering. And we must never come to a point where the suffering of humanity means nothing to us. God, when God saw his concern over human suffering, that has always been the reason why God has acted on behalf of man. When God saw the human helplessness, they were actually dying under the burden of their taskmasters. They were being cruelly beaten, some beaten to death. They were crying for years. Human helplessness. They could not help themselves. And then God, with the divine compassion, because of what I have seen, because of what I have heard, and because of what I have known, I just can't sit in heaven with my arm folded and do nothing. Something moves me. And he said, because of that, I have come down. I have been motivated to do something. And because of my compassion, because of my concern, Moses, I've come down to send you. I've come down to what? Send you. Not just to give you information. I've come to send you. And that is the point we want to get across to ourselves, beloved. It is very, very easy for us to sit back and say, it doesn't bother me. Doesn't concern me. Nobody in my family is under threat. But think of your neighbor. Or I have faith in God to believe God that no plague will come nigh my dwelling because he gave the angel charge concerning me. We can do that. And we ought to do that. Don't get me wrong. But when we do that with a sense of don't caredness, that's a word, and don't care of who are suffering, they will become wrong. There's a heart that must be stirred. When my good friend Jeremiah saw the suffering of the people of Judah, at one time he said, I just simply make up my mind, because of their wickedness, I'm going to say nothing. Let the devil take them over. But he said, while I beheld, my heart was moved by my eyes. Now, what he said was, my eyes have affected my heart. Get the point? What my eyes have seen, it has caused my heart to respond in like manner. Mine eyes have affected my heart. And beloved, we can't afford to see and pretend we don't see. We can't afford to hear people crying and suffering and pretend that we don't care. Mine eyes have affected my heart. And God said, because of that, I am come down to send you. These were the conditions that moved God. You know, God was motivated by what he knew, by what he saw and by what he heard. I'm now come down to send you. Now, when God sent his son Jesus, you know, I could mention more things, but you could build up on them. For example, I mean, last week we had one Sister Richards, and that was a tremendous message. I mean, you ought to get it, fellas, if you ought to get that. She made a statement about Isaiah. When Isaiah saw the Lord. And God caused Isaiah to become aware of the fact that God was bigger than what he saw hitherto. But when God said to Isaiah, not to Isaiah, madam, she made the point that when God said, whom shall I send? And who will go? God was not talking to Isaiah. God would make a general statement. That blessed me. It was not that God is talking to Isaiah, so you fella. No. He made a statement. Because of the darkness, because of the evil, because of the sin, because of the people among whom he dwelt. Unclean lips, that is. God made a general statement. Whom will I send? And Isaiah said, here am I. Send me. You know what, God? Your question is answered. Your concern is addressed. You don't have to worry anymore, God. Here am I. Send me. He volunteered his services. And I want to let us know, beloved, we cannot, as the people of God, sit down in our country and remain and continue activity as usual. We just simply can't. And there's enough taking place in our country. We don't even have to think about the world now. And that is not a selfish statement. Just around you, beloved, there are people who are suffering. There are people who are crying. Murders are on the increase. All type of things. And there are some folk who are hell-bent in fostering racism in our country. And if these people know what they are playing with, beloved, to play with racism is like playing with gasoline, you know. All it takes a little match, and it can burn down a whole city. You don't play with gasoline. And there are folk making racist statements and then lie about it, and we just simply sit back. I can't be bothered, because if I talk, they'll call me a racist. And we're more concerned about what they'll call us than we taking the bull by the horn and say, as long as I live here, I'm not going to keep quiet when such nonsense is being spoken or taking place. Because I know the tinderbox occasion when racism hits a country. Think of Kosovo with the ethnic cleansing. Think of Africa, where in a matter of a few months, weeks, almost 1 million people were slain, Hutsis and the Tutsis. Am I making sense? We can't afford to say we are untouchable. We got to be in the mix. We got to jump into the thing and rescue people. And this is what motivated God. And Jesus is saying, as the Father sent me. Now, how did God send Jesus? What motivated God to send Jesus? The spiritual darkness. In other words, the world was in chaos. The world was in chaos. Between Malachi and Matthew, 400 years had elapsed. 400 years. And within those 400 years, there was no word from God. There was no open vision. Could you imagine a world for even 4 days or 4 years that there's no manifestation from God, there's no word, there's no instruction, there's no vision, there's no dream. God seemed to have been dead. God had gone off the scene. Could you imagine that? But it's not only 4 years, it was 400 years that nothing was taking place. No word from God, no vision, no prophet. That's why when John the Baptist came on the scene, the folk flocked him around, from soldiers, from law, everybody, because this was a phenomenon. They never heard from God. There was no prophet. There was no vision. There was no word. There was nothing. And 400 years of darkness. I believe Isaiah chapter 1 gave us a good idea of what existed. The state of the people, the state of the land, and the religious abomination. I didn't give them this on the PowerPoint, so let me just simply read a few verses for you. Isaiah chapter 1. And we have the state of the people. Chapter 1 from verse 7 and 8. Your country. Let me make sure I get it correct here. Chapter 1 and verse 4. A sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should you be stricken anymore? You revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, etc. There we have the picture of the people. People stricken. Like a man full of sores, from the top of the head to the sole of the feet. And there's only wounds and bruises and putrefying sores that have not been molded up with ointment. That is the state of the people. Then we have the state of the land. Look at verse 7. I said before, your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devour it in your presence. And it is desolate, as overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, and as a besieged city. That was the state of the land. Are you following me? I didn't give this to the folk on this, so excuse them and excuse me. So we have the state of the people, chapter 1, verses 4 to 6. Number 2, the state of the land, chapter 1, 7 and 8. And we have number 3, religious abomination, chapter 1, verses 10 to 15. You can put up on the board now. Verse 10 to 15. So we all can see it together. And I read from verse 10. Hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our God, you people of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Lord? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts. And I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. When you come to appear before me, what require this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblation. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and the Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when you spread your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. God. Here we have a dismal picture of the state of the land, of the state of the people, and the religious abomination. I call it religious hypocrisy, going through all the motions. God says, I am just simply fed up. I'm just simply sick of all that. It means nothing to me. Your prayers mean nothing because your hands are defiled with blood. It's just simply hypocrisy. I will not hear you. Have you seen Trinidad and Tobago in that? Have you seen the present world like that? Where we have a multiplicity of religious activity, but means nothing. Wonderful, solemn time, different things being kept, different occasions being celebrated, but God said it means nothing. And this gives a picture, beloved, of the state of the world before Jesus came. And when God saw that, when God saw the helplessness of man, when God saw the suffering of the masses, when God saw the religious bigotry and hypocrisy, God said, I can't sit down here and do nothing. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Look at verse 17. The main time we don't quote so many times. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. In other words, God is saying, I do not. Unless I do something, those folk are going to perish. Unless I do something, those folk are going to die. I can't. So God sent his Son to offset the suffering, to offset the hopelessness, to offset the religious meaninglessness. Why God sent his Son. That is what motivated God. Beloved, if God is who he says he is, and he is, I am the everlasting God, I change not. God's response was to send his Son as the answer. Put simply, in a sentence, the answer for suffering humanity is Jesus Christ. Simple as that. You write down that. The answer for suffering humanity is Jesus Christ. I know that sounds simple because we all know it, don't we? It's like a cliche, but it's beyond that. Because even the believers have to remind themselves of that. Now, I would like to be very level when I'm preaching. I'm not being anti-government. I'm not being anti-order. I'm not being anti-institutions. But we must understand why, while there is need for government, while there's need for policy making, God has endorsed government. We must understand that the answer lies in one man. His name is Jesus Christ. Many years ago we sang a chorus, Christ is the answer to all my longings. Christ is the answer to all my need. Savior, baptizer, the great physician, oh hallelujah. He's all I need. You see, beloved, we can be caught up in the euphoria that the only answer is a change of government. The only answer is a change of policy. The only answer is a new leader. The only answer is this. The only answer is Jesus. If we change government, we're going to have a better life. Who tell you so? Well, tell the devil that Elmore Anthony said that is not so. The only answer is Jesus. Build new bridges, build new roads, open new highways, do all these good things, wonderful. Invest in agriculture, do all these things. The only answer, beloved, for humanity who is suffering is Jesus. When God saw everything, when God saw the suffering, God said the answer. So Paul puts it in perspective. When the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law, to do what? To redeem those who are under the law. In God's own reckoning, God will give every man an opportunity. But the final move must be God's. I'm not quite sure if I give it to you here or it was on the streaming on Facebook or what. I'm not quite sure. You'll tell me maybe afterwards. But God gave me a word 2 weeks ago about America. That America is given the final opportunity to determine whether or not they want me, that means God, to continue in their national affairs. And the way that they vote in November will indicate to me whether or not they want me to continue having a hand in the affairs. Did you hear me say that something? Where was it? Here? Okay. Was when? Thursday sometime? And I'll get it from the guys. Get it from the guys. God told me that. And that's why, beloved, we got to pray. We got to pray. We got to pray. You see, beloved believers, we got to be careful that we don't get carried away with the euphoria of the unsaved. I believe in my heart and my soul that Black Lives Matter. Nothing wrong with that. But if you are objective, you'll understand that the Black Lives Matter movement has been hijacked in America and become a racial weapon right now. And some folk who have nothing to do with Black Lives have jumped on the bandwagon and creating mayhem in the American society. And their ultimate aim, with themselves have vocalized, is to overthrow the present system and install their own ideology. It is a communist movement that has jumped in and hijacked the Black Lives Movement. And when you talk like that, they tell you you're plain white or what. We got to be careful as believers that we are objective and we say things as they really are. And that's the problem in the world. Folk refuse to speak the truth because they don't want to be labeled. Because when they speak the truth, it's always against popular opinion. You know what I mean? It's against popular opinion. And I don't want to rock the boat. But if we understand we're the salt of the earth, we are the light of the world. Look at me, beloved. You can't get blacker than me. You can't get blacker than this. So because I'm black, I'm going to begin to say, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter. Burn me play, burn it down, burn. Beat up the white people. Never. That is being stupid. That is racism in reverse. Yeah, well, it is. When you understand what the motive of these people is, and the motivation behind it, Even I'm talking to you, there are still some state where things are burning still. I was shocked that the thing is still, they're still burning down buildings, still beating people, still breaking up business places, blocking off whole blocks of cities. Still what I'm talking to you. All in the name of Black Lives Matter. And folk can't understand that the thing has been hijacked by Antifa, who have openly claimed who they are. It's a Marxist communist movement that has now drowned out the voice of the Black Lives Matter movement that was legitimate. And what I'm saying all that for is to come back here. We got to understand the people of God, the church of the living God, the ground and the pillar of truth. Paul declares to this young man, I think it's Titus, you got to be able to understand. I told him, I wrote to you so you can know to behave yourself. Now, it doesn't mean he was misbehaving. It means how to conduct, what policy you actually pursue in the house of the living God, which is the ground and the pillar of truth. If the ground and the pillar begin to compromise, if the ground and the pillar refuse to become what they really are, ground and pillar, the whole building will crumble. And believers, we are coming to a 10th of August, and I trust that no member of Rhema has become so irresponsible to say, I ain't going to vote now. If you hear any member of the church that, come and tell me, I'll get a piece of tambron whip, and I will whip you. You ought to vote. That is the responsibility of every responsible citizen. You need to vote. When you say, I'm not going to vote, you're saying, I don't care what happened to our country. I don't care who gets into power. I don't care. That's what you're saying. You got to show you believe in democracy, you believe in godliness, you believe in uprightness, you believe in integrity, and go and cast your vote to support that. But while you do that, remember the answer is Jesus Christ. Never forget that. When God saw what was taking place, God was moved, motivated, God was pushed to send his son, Jesus Christ. Just like he saw in the time. And when Jesus came, I'm going to stop at this one. I have many more. When Jesus came, he actually endorsed that. He declares that it was the Father's concern for suffering humanity that provided the motivation for sending him. When God saw the suffering, God sent his son so that man will not perish. When the son came, the son was not slow in declaring what caused him to come. Okay? Look at Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4 and verses 18 and 19. Turn to it. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. Look at that carefully here. He has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. You know, relieve people from their poverty, from their poor poverty of suffering. To heal the brokenhearted. People who are being hurting in the inside. To preach deliverance to a captive. People who are helpless. They are they are bound, and to recovering of sight to a blind, to set at liberty those who are bruised. Have you seen that? That's why I came. That's why he sent me. He saw man to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. So Jesus and Matthew, this was his statement before he started his public ministry. Or put another way, this was how he introduced himself to his public ministry. It happened after you were baptized by John, came out of the wilderness, is now going to embark on public. You know what? That's how he launched his public ministry. Leave it up there, please. That's how he launched. That was his opening statement. It all had to do with people. When God saw people poor, when God saw people bruised, when God saw people brokenhearted, when God saw people being captivated, when God saw people being blinded by ideologies and all type of isms, when God saw people being kept as prisoners and bruised and battered and bleeding, when God saw that, God sent him. He sent me. He sent me in answer to humanity. He sent me to make a difference. He sent me to put a stop to what was taking place upon the earth, upon the sons of men. God is saying, he sent me to preach deliverance. Put the last verse in, please, verse 19. To preach the acceptable year. All right, beloved, he's saying. You couldn't help yourself. You are condemned, put aside, rejected, cast out. Well, God is about to receive you again. You are accepted. The year of making a difference is now come. To preach the acceptable year. Hallelujah. In other words, you got to tell people you have not got to remain in the stage where you are. Where you are is not final. Your situation must not define you. You can get out of that. The bruised can be healed. The blind can be made to see. The captive can be set free. This is the year of acceptance. And he's saying that is what motivated the Father who sent me. Have you understood that? Motivation. Unless you see something, beloved, and it gets down into your heart, you will do nothing. But when you see people around you, when you hear their cries, and behold their helplessness, and behold even their ignorance, you can't afford to say, I ain't going to rock the boat now. Beloved, no. The Bible says you got to be prepared, even get yourself soiled with their dirt. Get their blood something spat upon you. Our good brother Carbatch, he's a medical doctor. He be going in the you been intern yet? Going to start intern this week. He goes as the intern to do the practical work now. A guy comes inside there from an accident. All over him, he's battered with blood. An eye is out. A whole big gash with dead flesh hanging down. He's saying, I can't take on that. No. When you're making clean, you could call me. He'll be kicked out one time. He got to get himself inside there. Prepared to get the blood on his white nice coat. Prepared to get his hands soiled. In trying to bind up that wound. In trying to stitch up that wound. In trying to stabilize that man. going between life and death. He got to get down and become involved. And the time has come, we got to become involved, beloved. And that's what God did. When God saw you and me, God sent his son, motivated by one, human suffering, two, human helplessness, and three, a heart of compassion. And Christ says, even as my Father sent me, even so, I send you. Next week, Sunday, I'm going to deal with you. How did Christ demonstrate that compassion? Before he sent disciples, he demonstrated everything the Father did. And then he said to them, even so, send I you. Could we all stand, please? My God. Thank you, Jesus. Even so, send I you. Father, we give you praise today. We know that the Holy Spirit can make these words become a living reality in our hearts. God,